Wilbur, you set up? All right. I had to make sure Wilbur all right. My name is Holly, and I'm an addict. And it is really, really an honor to be here, especially tonight. It's an honor because tomorrow I will celebrate 27 years of being clean. And I could not be more grateful than I am right now. You know, this has not been an easy road, but it has been the best thing that has ever happened to me. For the newcomers, I didn't just come in and sit down or just come in and go to dances or just come in and go to functions. I got a sponsor. I worked the steps. I went to meetings, and I stayed in service. I'm also really grateful tonight because my sponsor is here and my best friend. And they've been with me every step of the way. Everything that I've gone through in this program, my sponsor, my friend, Michael Anthony Quinn, and Wynette Vance have been there for me. You know, I didn't have the kind of, it was cold. You know, it's like when God calls you into this, when he calls you out of those streets and he calls you into this, he gives you a specific ministry or a specific assignment. And so the assignment that he gave me was to tell the truth. And so I didn't get to like be cute and get a boyfriend and hide everything that I had done in the streets. God made me start telling on myself from day one. And so oftentimes I walked around with shame because nobody was talking about, none of the women would talk about what they really had to do in the streets to stay loaded. See, I had a disease that was so ferocious that it did not allow me to take a break. I didn't get to take a break. I had to get loaded every minute, every second of every day because life hurt. The things that happened to me, the things that made me hate myself hurt. And every time that I came to just a little bit, I needed some more dope so I could check out. And so when you have a disease that is ferocious and that feeds on you feeding it, then you got to keep going. I outran the Energizer Bunny on many a nights. The Energizer Bunny could not keep up with me because my disease rendered me that way. My disease took everything from me. It took my integrity. It took my morals. It took my character. It took my standards. It took everything from me. Everything that my family tried to instill in me, my disease took it. My disease made me have sex in the middle of the day, in the broad daylight, in the middle of the streets, while people were watching. That's the kind of disease I had. I didn't get to be cute. I wasn't one of those girls that, you know, the D-boy would let sit in his house because she was kind of cute. See, I became legendary for my sexual skills. And so because I had skills the way that I did, I couldn't get no credit. They wouldn't give me credit because they liked the way I performed. I couldn't get no credit, and I got a welfare check. They wouldn't give me no credit. So night and day and night, I had to perform like a circus monkey to feed my disease. And it never stopped. Because every time I had to lower my standards, it chipped away at my self-esteem. And the more I chipped away at my self-esteem, the more dope I had to smoke. Because every time I looked at myself, I hated myself. I hated the things that I did. And I hated the things that I had to do. But I had to do them. I had to do them. And I had to act like it didn't matter. That's the real cold part. I had to act like it didn't matter. That I was okay with it. That I was okay with somebody sodomizing me. That I was okay when that guy held my head down on him and ejaculated in my throat. I had to pretend that I was okay with it. When they gang raped me up in the hills of Oakland and they threw me out the car and I had to walk back to the host row because I had no choice. I had to pretend that I was okay with it. I didn't get a choice. See, I don't know what they smoking now. I don't know what they using now that lets them come in with phones and cars and jobs and places to stay. I don't know what kind of dope this is. But y'all definitely wasn't around in the 80s. The kind of dope I smoke make you sell the clothes off your back. I remember one Christmas I bought my son it was a fire truck. It cost $20. I bought him a fire truck. And when you push the button, the light would go around on it. I had $40. The truck cost $20. I bought a hit with the other 20. That light went around one time on that truck. And I had to take it back from my son. He missed a lot of Christmases. My son missed a lot because of my disease. You know, I remember him running down the street behind me going, "Mommy, Mommy, please don't go. Please don't leave me by myself again." And I couldn't turn around. I couldn't turn around. Not even for my own child. Because my disease would not let me. I'm a real dope fiend. I didn't have no cute pipe, no torch, no clothespin that you held the matches with. I set my whole mouth on fire. My hands was bleeding. And I remember one time going I had $5. And that was enough to get a hit. And I was running down the street. And I had matches in my pocket. And the matches caught on fire. And my pants caught on fire. And I just patted myself and kept running. I just patted myself and kept running. That's the kind of disease that I had. The kind of addiction where dope fiends didn't want you around. There were certain dope fiend cardboard boxes that I couldn't go into. Now, go figure that. They won't let you in their box. Because of the kind of dope fiend you are, they won't let you in their box. Because you're a tramp. I became a disgrace to my neighborhood and my community. And I remember, like dragging myself home in the middle of the morning. It'd be like 5:30 in the morning. I'd be trying to drag myself home, and the people would be coming out to go to work, and they would look at me and they would go, "What happened to her? What happened to her? She was such a nice girl." That dope tore me up. My mother, I was such an embarrassment to her. I come from a very religious family, and I was such an embarrassment to my family. We lived in a nice house. Like the nice house on the block, and then you see this crackhead walk out the back. I became such an embarrassment to my family and my community that my mother sent me away. She sent me to Louisiana, Ruston, Louisiana. And she didn't understand the disease of addiction, so she sent my son with me. And we got to Louisiana, and I couldn't find the dope at first. I really wanted to change my life. I really wanted to not use. I really wanted to be something different. I really wanted to be a parent to my son. I wanted to be a mother to my son. I swear to God I did. But I found the dope in Ruston, Louisiana. And the same thing that happened in California, the same things I did in California, they had never seen anything like me. I was like a Tasmanian devil dope fiend. They'd never seen. I turned a highway into a whole stroll. I was flagging down truckers. Just foolishness. Dope fiend foolishness. I sold all my clothes at one time for $20. Because I didn't have time for all that going back and forth. And let me tell you, I've always loved clothes. And when I got to Louisiana, I was running credit cards, so I had I had ostrich and camel and just all kind of stuff that I, stolen off other people's credit cards. And I tell you, one night, I sold everything. Ostrich, alligator, eel, monkey, everything. I had it. Y'all know now, I like clothes. I got stuff. Just imagine me taking all my stuff in my car to the dope man house and telling him, "You can have it all. $20. I sold everything I owned for $20. I would leave my son in the apartment by himself. He was 3 years old. And I wouldn't come back for days. And one night I came in, and he didn't know that I had come in, because I had a little dope, so I had to tip in. I didn't want nobody to hear me, because I didn't want nobody to ask me for nothing. So I had to tip in. And when I walked in, my son was in the back bedroom, He was 3 years old, and he was on his knees, and he was praying, and he was saying, God, you got to send somebody to help me. There's nobody to take care of me. I'm just a little kid. And that couldn't stop me. It didn't stop me from using. I didn't know that what I had was a disease. I just thought I liked to get high. And then once you start, you need some more. But I didn't know that I would never, ever be able to satisfy that craving, because the craving was coming from a place of emptiness inside me. And no matter how much dope I smoked, until I dealt with the hole that was inside me, I would never be able to put enough dope and alcohol in me. So suffice it to say, the FBI asked me to leave Louisiana. They didn't ask me. They told me I had 24 hours to clear the state and that I could never come back. My grandmother turned 105 and I couldn't go to the birthday party because I'm not invited to the state of Louisiana. The man told me, he said, because I was running credit cards and hoeing and just, oh my God, just everything. I was doing everything. My disease made me do everything. I had to do everything. Just all kind of ungodly, unscrupulous, scandalous, underhanded, dirty, grimy. But I had to. I didn't have no choice. And so they made me leave. And I came back to California and I was pregnant. I don't know how that happened. And so at that time, there was a judge in 1991, there was a judge in Oakland, and if you were pregnant and you were a crack addict, if you went to jail, she wouldn't let you out until you had the baby. And so I went to jail and they let me out just a little bit early. My daughter was born May 23rd. And I promised myself that I was going to be, I promised myself this time was going to be different. I brought my daughter home from the hospital, laid her down in that bed, and left her. I snuck out the window and left that baby, that newborn baby. And when I came back, she looked at me. Babies was born with their eyes open. They had some sense. I don't know. She had smoked so much crack while she was in me. And she looked at me. That baby looked at me, and I swear she said this. She said, I don't know what your problem is. But I didn't come here for this, and you need to get it together. And shortly thereafter, let me tell you how I got here. At 18 days old, my daughter started dehydrating because I had used so much with her while I was carrying her. She didn't have any, what they call intestinal villi. And intestinal villi is what breaks down food and causes it to process in the stomach. And so she didn't have that. So she was prone to projectile vomiting and projectile diarrhea. And so it just continued and continued. She was born at 7 pounds, but she dehydrated down to 4 pounds. and they had to put her in the hospital. And so her veins were so tiny, they had to feed her intravenously through her head. And so I stayed at the hospital. I was going to be a mother. I stayed at the hospital. But I didn't want to forget about my son. And the next door neighbor was giving a birthday party for her daughter, who was my son's age. And so I told my mom that I would take my son to the birthday party. So I left the hospital. My mother gave me $40. She gave me money to buy the baby next door a gift. I spent $30 on the gift. I had $10 left. And I went next door with my son, holding his hand. And this girl knew all about me. She was my neighbor. And she knew all about me. She knew all about me. My whole community knew all about me. And when I walked into that birthday party and all those nice girls were there, you know, the kind of girls that get married, the kind of girls that get their hair done, the kind of girls that had jobs, the nice girls. I immediately felt inadequate. And I felt like I did not belong. And I was not comfortable in my skin. And she directed me to a barrel of Budweiser beer. And I had one beer and it took the edge off. So I'm an addict. It wanted to take the edge off too, smooth me out. So I had two. Then I had one for good measure. And when I had the one for good measure, that light bulb went off in my head and told me, you got $10. And I left that birthday party, and I left my son at that birthday party, and I left my daughter at the hospital, and I never came back. And so CPS took my kids. They gave my son to my mother, and they gave my daughter to my sister. And they would be having conversations about my kids, and they didn't ask me anything. And I'd be sitting right there, and they'd be talking over me like I wasn't even there. And you know, addicts, we got egos, and we got pride, and it's like, oh no, this is not going to happen. And then my sister hit me with the bomb. My sister bought my mother's house. My mother was renting. My sister bought the house. And she said, you have got to get help, or you have got to get out. And you know, when I was faced with the possibility of really having to live out there in the streets with them people like in the TL, oh no. I could do it for a little while, but I couldn't do it forever. You know, I could always come home. I could always come home and take a shower. I don't care if it took me a month to get there, I could come home. When I was faced with the possibility of continuously having to be in the streets and eat out the garbage and all of that stuff, I went into treatment. But I did not go into treatment for treatment. I went into treatment to get my kids back because they was a welfare check. I didn't even go into treatment. I went into treatment because my children were a welfare check. And I could not get high without my children. I could, but it was hard. So I went into a program called the Healthy Babies Project. They let me take my daughter in there. CPS put me on a 20-month family reunification plan. And I had to do all this stuff. They had a whole barrage of stuff that I had to do. And I don't know, something happened when I was in that program. I didn't mean for it to happen, but it happened. I didn't mean for it to happen. I didn't mean to be clean. I didn't know you were saying. Trying to do that. But something happened. And I began to read the literature. And I realized that I was sick, that I was not morally bankrupt, that I was not, a bad person. I was not a horrible person. I was not a horrible mother. I was sick. I had an illness just like cancer. And I had something that needed treatment. And the treatment was comprised of going to meetings and working the steps and getting with a sponsor and changing my life, changing everything about my life. And I started to work the steps. When I was in that program, I was going to be in there 6 months, and I started to work the steps when I was in that program because I knew if I left that program and I hadn't worked the steps that I was going to use. And so I started to work the steps. And I worked all 12 of them. And I was in that program 6 months. And H&I would come in. I heard this man talk about H&I. You guys, that's serious. You know, it's funny how we get our lives together and we just disappear. You know, we get some cars and some jewelry and some stuff, and we don't do no service. We don't want to help nobody because we too busy. Your ass will be busy smoking crack. And it ain't even crack no more, it's meth. And I seen a caption on Facebook of this brother smoking meth, and it's like, I don't never want none of that. Yeah. But anyway, that's just my plug for H&I. So they came in and they gave us a setup. I had all the books. I had all the literature. I started reading the literature. I started working the steps when I had 90 days. They let me go to meetings by myself. None of the other girls in the program wanted to go to meetings. They just wanted to be clean. H&I told me when I got out the program, do not pass go. Do not collect $200. Go to a meeting. Don't get your hair done. Don't get your nails done. Don't buy no jewelry. Go to a meeting. And when I left the program, I went straight to the In-Between Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous at 4710 East 14th Street, and I've been there ever since. And I called those women. There was a phone booth at the In-Between when phone booth, and I called the women at the program, and they put me on a conference call, and I said, you guys, I made it. I made it. I'm at a meeting. I made it. And from that day to this day, I have been going to meetings, and I have been working the steps, and I have been working with my sponsors. Mick is my friend now. He has been my sponsor. He's my sponsor. He's my friend. Juanette's my confidant. She my sponsor. She my friend. She my support group. She is my everything. This has not been an easy journey for me. Earlier this year, my son went to New Mexico. My son went to prison a couple of years ago. And he was fighting a case. And in February, I went to New Mexico because we was going to take the case to trial. And they was going to give my son 30 years. And so he took 16. And my heart was broken. My heart has been broken since about February. I've been trying to, get it back together and trying to, gather myself. But I know something broke on the inside of me because, see, I remember how he suffered as a result of my disease. I remember how I neglected him. I remember that I never held him, that I never fed him, that I never told him he was beautiful, I never told him he could fly.